Hello, everybody. This is Dyron Bush. Welcome to the 12th. How about that? The 12th episode of the Mechanics of Money. I am the CEO of Theogony Financial. Today is a very exciting day. I was featured in my firm, Theogony Financial. Was featured on MSN.com as one of the top 10 visionaries. Up and coming visionaries in the industry, right? Which is really, this is my second time, believe it or not, this is my second time being on MSN, so which is really humbling, So that lets you know that my firm is definitely, making strides. What we're doing some positive things out there, right? So today we're not going to do a disclaimer because we're not going to talk about the economy um, or stocks or anything like that. Today we're going to talk about something a little bit closer to my heart, which is a little troubling to me. Again, we're going to go. We normally go over the taxes, the tools, and the truth, right? I think today what we're going to do, we're going to go over the taxes and the truth. These are the two things we're going to go over. Okay. Um, Now let's delve into this. Something really troubled me that I found out recently that happened several months ago. Okay, um, let's talk about the title of this the slide here. The title of the slide is "What Happens When Society Begins to Undervalue the Very Profession Responsible for Verifying Financial Truth." Right. So what does that all mean? Right. What does that mean? What am I trying to get at? What I'm getting at is the accounting profession has been reclassified as non-professional. Believe it or not, I'll repeat it. Accounting has been downgraded as non-professional. You know, so that is huge. That's huge, especially it hits home for me because I am an accountant, right? So I don't understand how this actually happened. Understanding what accountants do. I don't understand how it could be deemed as non-professional. Okay. Uh, One of the things that came out of this is that the federal student loan will be limited now, right? Where you could get $100,000, 150, maybe $200,000 for your education student loan. Now you're limited. You're very limited to the amount of money that you can get. There's going to be some repercussions from that, right? The pipeline for concerns for future CPAs have narrowed now, right? We're going to have less CPAs, right? Um, uh, there are going to be fewer students. There's going to be weakened oversight, reduced financial literacy. There's going to be declining institutional trust. The American Institute of Certified Public Accountants have mentioned some concern about this, right? And society may be undervaluing the accountability, prioritizing spectacle over rigor, and weakening trust in institutions. This is not good. Okay, let's delve even deeper to what this downgrade means for accounting. I've watched this over the years happen over the last 20 years. Happen even in schools, whether it's junior high, elementary school, or high school. I could speak to my experience when I was in junior high. I took my first business course in junior high. Right, I took free enterprise. That was first. I knew what I wanted to do at a young age. So I took my first course was free enterprise. Of course, then I took accounting. They actually had accounting courses in high school. They don't have these things anymore, right? By the time I took accounting in college, I was already ahead of my class in terms of knowing what to do, general ledger entries, debits and credits. I had already done all this stuff. I've done packets and case studies and all that. So uh, what we see is a decline. What you'll see is a lot of I've seen students in school in junior high that don't know their multiplication tables. In sixth or seventh grade, they don't know their multiplication tables. This is troubling. This is troubling. Financial literacy is disappearing from schools. And you talk to any teacher, and they'll tell you this. It's not just me saying it, right? Just me being a voice piece and saying this. This is real. This is really happening. Young adults are entering adulthood not financially unprepared, right? Financial literacy is on decline. What you're starting to see is a quiet erosion, right? A quiet erosion. Whether it's along the lines of debt, taxes, credit, investment, budgeting. Modern systems are increasingly abstract and difficult to understand. We're removing financial literacy from the classroom while simultaneously making finance more complicated than ever. So what you have is a lost generation. Now, I think it's important now that this is done. Again, like I said, this is close to my heart. And I'm putting this out here, and I want this to float around in the ether, on the internet, and everybody to know that challenges accounting and challenges the difficulty of what accounting is and what it does for society. And let's go back, right? Let's go back to history and understand what accounting is, right? What it actually has done for society, right? When we go back to the Mesopotamians, they tracked grain, livestock, trade, taxes. Clay tablets evolved into conform writing. Economic record keeping may have helped create written language itself, right? So the main impetus to communicate in society was for commerce, right? So because we had to record this commerce and this trade amongst ourselves. So before that, we really didn't have a reason to communicate with each other. But once we established commerce and finance, then we had to establish some type of accounting system, right? So accounting predates civilization. Accounting before writing explains accounting may have been predated literacy. Humans first needed a system to track obligations and trades, and civilization required measurable trust. Let's talk about the Egyptians, right? Let's talk about the Egyptians. One of the wonders of the world, right? The pyramids, right? One would have to wonder, how did they even build the pyramids without having some type of accounting system, right? That's what a lot of people take for granted. Yes, they moved stones that weighed 50 to 80, 100, 200 tons. They did all that, but they also had to have some type of accounting system. And what you see is accounting built empires. The scribes of the Nile, right? Egyptian scribes tracked taxation, labor, food reserves, construction, logistics. Pyramids required massive accounting coordination. Matter of fact, I just saw the other day that they found some tunnels that are so sophisticated they don't even understand how they built them. And then even recently, they found that underneath the pyramids, they have a complex that is so deep. It's about 5 statues of liberty deep. They don't even know exactly what it is, right? So how can you build something like that without having some type of sophistication or accounting system, right? Not just engineering, but you also have to have some type of accounting system in place to do that, to tie everything in together. So the emphasis accounting was operational infrastructure. Someone had to be able to count the laborers, allocation funds, monitor resources, control taxation. The pyramids were not only engineered marvels, they were accounting marvels. And that's what I'm trying to get over to people. And we'll discuss more later. The Roman Empire, right? The Roman Empire had a very sophisticated accounting system. Roman and financial stability. When Rome lost financial, the empire collapsed. Rome only collapsed when people lost trust in their financial system, right? And it's very interesting how they lost trust in the financial system. If you study Roman history, it's when they started shaving down the coins, right? The coins actually lost value because they started shaving down the coins to, for currency. They shaved it down, so they actually devalued the currency, the Roman currency, right? And that was one of the things that spelled the end. Merchants were not accepting the currency anymore. The currency was actually being devalued. So what you had is, because of this, you had inflation, currency debasement, military overspending, declining of public trust. Connect Roman to as we connect Rome to the modern parallel, even the famous Roman soldiers were compensated in salt, right? And then when the Roman soldiers were compensated in salt, that's where we get the word salary, right? Salary and salt, right? Also, what we have is we have religious history, right? In the Bible, they talk about Matthew 22:21, right? Where Jesus famously said, "Render therefore unto Caesar the thing which Caesar, and unto God the thing that are God's," right? So even within the Bible, they talk about accounting, right? They talk about that. This is something from the beginning of time. This statement reflects more than theology. Acknowledge the existence of structure and governance and taxation and civil obedience and economic administration within the Roman Empire. Accounting is not mere a profession. It's merely a profession. It deals with debt, inflation concerns, financial distrust. The empire rarely collapses all at once. Financial trust erodes first. Now, we can hearken into this and understand that. If we flash forward and see what's going on, we see a devaluation of the dollar right now, right? We see the dollar starting to decline. We see the national debt skyrocketing. It's doubling and tripling at an exponential rate. These are things this is how empires collapse. It's exactly how empires collapse, and it's very concerning. Next, we have the Renaissance changed everything. Pakali with the double entry bookkeeping, right? The double entry bookkeeping was formalized in 1494. It enabled banking, international trade, investment markets, and capitalism, right? A reliable accounting scaled civilization globally. Accounting became memory, verification, institutional trust. Modern capitalism could not exist without reliable accounting. Okay, next we're gonna talk about. You're gonna see a list of names here, right? You see some famous people. You see Al Capone, Bernie Madoff, FTX, which is associated with Sam Bankman-Fried, Jimmy Zong. All these people have a common thread. They were all thwarted and brought down by accountants. Police did not necessarily bring these people down. Al Capone was brought down. It's very well recorded that Al Capone would have walked if it wasn't for accountants to be able to catch him for tax evasion. That is well recorded, well reported. Al Capone was brought down for tax evasion. Bernie Madoff was brought down because his Ponzi scheme collapsed. And ultimately, it was forensic accountants that pointed out the trade inconsistency. Bernie Madoff operated with impunity for decades. He addressed the NASDAQ. That's how respected he addressed universities, and nobody could say anything. Nobody knew anything. This man did not even perform a trade on the stock exchange. That's how sophisticated his operation was. So how is somebody that without accounting or financial background is supposed to catch somebody like that? That's sophisticated. FTX, FTX collapsed, and ultimately accountant or a financial person pointed that out. Jimmy Zong operated 10 years without impunity. He went on the lam for 10 years and got away with billions in Bitcoin. And it was only a forensic accountant or investigator was able to bring him in. It's forensic accounting and tax reform and fraud and detection and oversight system. Financial corruption often survives until accounting scrutiny appears, right? So accounting is the civilization immune system against financial infection. And that's the point I'm trying to make. This is very important. Okay, next we're gonna talk about the current security. Traditional computers cannot crack the encryption quickly. That is the assumption that the current computers cannot crack the encryption we have. But this is the exciting thing that my company is starting to do. We're starting to get into we're starting to get into AI security, right? We've already developed some software that really renders ransomware. It renders ransomware useless, right? Where companies have lost billions of dollars over the years to ransomware. With the use of my software, it's literally impossible for somebody to be able to get money from a corporation without having to deal with the security measures that my company has. The name of the software is called Phalanx 9A. And to date, we've only had 2A authentication. But my software has 9A authentication. It has a lot of points of security. And all of these securities, if not all of the measures are not met, then the transaction does not go through. So the ransomware does not work. It does not work. You literally cannot hold somebody ransom or hold a company ransom because you will not be able to get past the security measures. Now, let's talk about quantum systems now. The average computer has encryption, right? But we have not touched upon with everybody doing this to accounting. What they don't understand is that business is getting ready to go through a revolution now. And that revolution is going to have to contend with something. And that contention is going to have to deal with quantum computers. And quantum computers are a threat. Just to give you an example of how quantum computers are a threat, they can break cryptographic barriers, compromising financial systems and undermining trust in digital assets. One widely discussed breakthrough involved a quantum system reportedly performing equivalent to 2.6 billion years worth of computation work in approximately 4 minutes. Now I want you to sit down and I'll repeat that again. And I want you to quantify what I just said, right? A computer just did 2.6 billion years worth of computation work in approximately 4 minutes. Now understanding what cryptology is, right? Cryptology is all about timing, right? It's how much time do you have to break a particular code, right? So if I had 256 bit encryption, then it would take me a certain amount of time to break that encryption. But how long do you think it would take a quantum computer to break a 256 bit encryption when it can actually process 2.6 billion years worth of computation work in approximately 4 minutes? Houston, there is a problem. Okay? So, lastly, I'll say the dangers is not merely quantum computers becoming powerful. The danger is that today's security may become obsolete overnight. Literally overnight. What we have is China. We're starting to get a little taste of what's going on. China has an open source quantum computer, right? So what happens when somebody gets access to these quantum computers and people know how to use these quantum computers? They do, So now that these quantum computers are starting to become open source, What would stop somebody from using these open source computers to crack encryption? People can do this kind of stuff. So what happens if trust fails, right? You have panic, liquidity crisis, digital bank runs, institutional instability, historical comparisons. Modern finance is built almost entirely upon confidence. A future bank run may not involve crowds outside banks. It may happen globally in seconds, right? Understanding that it's happening in seconds uh, because everything is digital, right? So everybody's not standing in line waiting for the bank to open. So that's something to think about. Now, this might be the burgeoning of a new type of accountant, right? I've given this a lot of thought. What you might have is what you call a quantum accountant, right? Of course, this is a phrase that I coined, but you might have a quantum accountant where you might have an accountant that has to have additional skills in cybersecurity, right? He has to understand quantum technology to be able to even begin to investigate or do any type of forensic investigation on some type of financials, right? Cyber analysis, AI auditor, blockchain specialist, trust architect. You have something like that, So it's something to think about. It's definitely something to think about. Accountants of tomorrow may require cybersecurity literature as much as tax knowledge, and this is going to be interesting. So to do away with accountants or downgrade it is very troubling. I think somebody definitely made a misstep here. Well, to see all this, this is my final notes, right? This is my final notes. This is basically going to be my opinion. I am really disheartened to see this happen to my profession. I will admit, I guess I should have, I would, I've been reading the tea leaves over the years where I've seen various business courses taken out of high school and junior high. Again, I've seen junior high students not be able to do their multiplication tables. So I've seen a lot of this happening. Um, it was my accounting teacher that taught me that there's no free lunch. When I asked him inquisitively, I said, "Well, what do you mean there's no free lunch?" Right? There's nothing free in the world. That's what he was saying. There's nothing free. There's always a cost, right? And that's when he went on to teach me as an accountant opportunity cost, right? That is a accounting principle, right? Opportunity cost, right? So I think my high school teacher, I think my a lot of my accounting professors, for those who are alive or have passed on, or for those who passed on, are rolling in their grave. They can't believe that something like this is actually happening. Civilization still needs the guardian of truth, right? They need that. Whether it be starting, we went over the history, whether it be the Mesopotamian ledgers, the Roman taxation, the Renaissance bookkeeping, forensic accounting, blockchain analysis, quantum finance, right? Um, the thing is that I put together a quote, and I want you to listen to what I have to say on this, because this is really troubling, right? Um, this is the quote I put together, right? Moore's law predicts the exponential acceleration of computer power, right? But no corresponding law ever guaranteed the exponential acceleration of human wisdom, ethics, and restraint or verification. As processing speeds and doubles and systems grew infinitely more complex, civilization quietly assumed accountability would somehow keep pace, but it didn't. So every civilization eventually reaches a moment where speed begins to outrun wisdom. When verification is sacrificed for innovation, collapse becomes not a possibility, but a countdown. So What does that mean? What that means is that this is this is a key moment. This is a key moment when we look back on this. We look back on a civilization. We look back at our economy and say this was a key moment, inflection point. You know, who else is supposed to put the laws together for Sarbanes-Oxley, or who is going to deal with Enron or WorldCom? All these different things, Glass-Steagall, all these different laws are put in place by financial people, people with accounting background, business backgrounds. Who is going to be the guardian of the gates? So I think somebody needs to take a hard look at this and understand that. So that's my final thought, and you take it easy.